Got a bombshell report coming out of UCLA. Let's go to Aaron Sibarium on X. Whistleblowers at UCLA Medical School say it has dramatically lowered admission standards for minority applicants. As a result, they say 50% of some of the cohorts now, yikes, fail basic tests of medical competence. My goodness. We've obtained shocking internal data. They have the receipts. There's a graph right now, if you're not watching this on YouTube, distribution of self-exam grades by clerkship. And they're talking about emergency medicine, family medicine, and they're going through the different dates, and it's not looking good. UCLA Medical School hired a new dean of admissions, Jennifer Lucero, in 2020. Why does that name sound familiar? Look that up. Was she involved with any other story or anything? No, I don't recognize her face. Maybe it was another Lucero. That name sounds familiar, though. In 2020, since then, the number of students failing their self-exams, standardized tests taken after each clinical rotation, has exploded, meaning they don't know what the hell they're doing, rising as much as tenfold in some subjects. This wasn't a coincidence. Distribution of self-exam grades by clerkship first attempt. And they're using years 2021, 2022, 2023. And we're seeing a rise in the red failure rate. That's where his receipts are. Race-based admissions have turned UCLA into a failed medical school. That's a quote from a former member of the admissions staff. We want racial diversity so badly, we're willing to cut corners to get it. That's another quote. Aaron says this is the story of how that happened, led by Lucero, who also serves as the classic white liberal woman, who also serves as the DEI czar of UCLA's anesthesiology department. The administration's committee gives Black and Latino applicants a pass for subpar metrics. 4 people who served on it said. The whites, paraphrasing, the whites and Asians need near perfect scores to even be considered. If I need any type of serious medical treatment, I'm going to ask for a white at this point. Can you blame me? Committee members who try to uphold standards are silenced. 2 sources said Lucero attacked an admissions officer for raising concerns about an applicant with low test scores. This is the meme where you have I forgot her name, the white queen from Game of Thrones being held up by all the poor colored people. Here's the quote from Lucero. Did you not know that African-American women are dying at a higher rate than anybody else? What the hell's that got to do with can they uphold the standards that we need them to be at? And it's funny, the blacks will be more mad at you looking at a black from this program as, I'm not sure about you, than they are about, well, let's keep the standard high. So if a black gets through, we're confident that the black is a Ben Carson. It's somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. Let's continue on. The candidate's score shouldn't matter, Lucero continued, because we need people, quote, we need people like this in the medical school. Like what? I don't need anybody. I don't care what color you are. You could be LGBTQ. I don't care. If you're the best surgeon, please do your thing. Just don't hurt me because I'm MAGA or something like that. Because I got nothing against you. Before you do something crazy, let me articulate my opinion. Because now we got activist surgeons out here. We got purple-haired activist surgeons. We are not consistent in the way we apply the metrics to these applicants. One admissions official emailed colleagues after the incident. Quote, this is troubling. I'd say, quote, I wondered, the official added, if this applicant had been a white or an Asian, I'm paraphrasing for that matter, we would have had that much discussion. Or would we? I don't know. Aaron says this story is based on written correspondence between UCLA officials, internal data on student performance, and interviews with 8 professors at the medical school, 6 of whom have worked with or under Lucero on medical student and residency admissions. Together, they provide an unprecedented account of how racial preferences outlawed in California since 1996. It's against the Civil Rights Act. Well, how's your Civil Rights Act of 1964 doing? How's it doing it for you? It protects everybody other than the whites and Asians. They should just call it everyone but the whites and Asians. And even in that case, you're good. If you're a good white, you're fine. If you're a MAGA white, I don't even like the MAGA white. I mean, not to say that, but I don't like the Zios. I mean, that's we got a fundamental difference, but I'm even to a more wilder step than them, and they aren't covering on this. You might have to get let loose of that Zionism and focus on what matters. Have nonetheless continued upending academic standards at one of the top medical schools in the country. The school has consequently taken a hit in the rankings and seen a sharp rise in the number of students failing basic standardized tests, raising concerns about their clinical competence. I have students on their rotation who don't know anything, an admissions official said. It's almost unheard of for admissions officers to go public with stories from confidential deliberations, much less to accuse their colleagues of breaking the law or lowering standards. They've agreed to come forward because the drop in student performance is so alarming. Continuing on, quote, I wouldn't normally talk to a reporter, a UCLA faculty member said, but there's no way to stop this without embarrassing the medical school. Within 3 years of Lucero's hire, UCLA dropped from 6th to 18th place in U.S. News and World Report's ranking for medical research. And in some of the cohorts she admitted, more than 50% of the students failed standardized tests on emergency medicine, family medicine, internal medicine, and pediatrics. You happy to send your kid to one of these? Residents, those tests, known as shelf exams, which are typically taken at the end of each clinical rotation, measure basic medical knowledge and play a pivotal role in residency applications, though only 5% of students fail each test nationally. The rates are much higher at UCLA. Failure rates have increased tenfold in some subjects since Lucero took over admissions. That uptick coincided with the steep drop in the number of Asian matriculants and tracks the subjective impressions of faculty who say that students have never been more poorly prepared. What would you want to do more than put a scalpel in their hands? One professor said that a student in the operating room could not identify a major artery when asked. This is not funny, but how do you do this without laughing? And you're either going to laugh or cry. Then berated the professor for putting her on the spot. I don't know what it is, allegedly, not even allegedly. It could be a black imam, and the black imam's like, I don't know, an artery? What's that? And then the professor's like, well, how'd you get in here? And then the black imam's like, don't you know I'm a black imam? Can we get video? That's exactly how it went. And then the professor was like, yeah, you're right. I can't do anything about the blacks. Another said that students at the end of their clinical rotations don't know basic lab tests, and in some cases are unable to present patients. Quote, I don't know how some of these students are going to be junior doctors, the professor said. What do you mean? You put on the white coat and you walk around with a scalpel. You might not be good at your job. I hope you get those funding for your lawsuits ready. Faculty are seeing a shocking decline in knowledge of medical students. And for those who've seen the competency crisis up close, double standards and admissions are a big part of the problem. Quote, all the normal criteria for getting into medical school only apply to people of certain races, an admissions officer said. Quote, for other people, those criteria are completely disregarded. You know, the chances of these people who are speaking up that they're just bootlickers too, that they're just scared of what's happening, the chances are pretty high of that. Another admissions officer said that the bar for underrepresented minorities is as low as you could possibly imagine and, quote, completely disregards grades and achievements. Interesting. Several officials said that they support holistic admissions and don't want test scores judged in isolation. The problem, they say, is that the committee isn't just weighing academics against community service or considering how much time a given kid had to study for the MCAT. For certain applicants, they say hardship and community service seem to be the only things that matter to the majority of the committee's 20 to 30 members, many of whom were handpicked by Lucero, according to people familiar with the selection process. Good little white woman liberal. Quote, "We were always outnumbered," an admissions officer told the Free Beacon, referring to committee members who expressed concern about low grades. Other people would get upset when we brought up GPA. GPA, that's so 2010. Lucero hasn't been kind to dissenters. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, 6 people who've worked with her described a pattern of racially charged incidents that has dispirited officials and pushed some of them to resign from the committee. That's kind of the goal, because you are now the maggots. She has lashed out at officials who question the qualifications of minority candidates, 5 sources said, suggesting naysayers are privileged, implying that they are racist and subjecting them to diversity training sessions, the struggle bus. Aaron continues on to say after a Native American applicant was rejected in 2021, for example, Lucero chewed out the committee and made members. You know how rare it is to get an Indian up in here? You can't turn an Indian down. I don't care what their MCAT score was. Allegedly. She chewed out the committee and made members sit through a 2-hour lecture on Native history delivered by her own sister, according to 3 people familiar with the incident. No wonder the UCLA people are speaking out. They're tired of this. In the anesthesiology department, where Lucero, I can't speak, y'all. Where Lucero helps rank applicants for residencies, she has rebuffed calls to blind the race of candidates. No, we need to see the race because we don't know if they're good or not. Because, the blacks are all a monolith. This is really, everybody's going in and they're thinking like they're going to help people medically, and you've got to be on top of your stuff. You got to know autonomy. You have to know everything. And you have to be really good biology, all this kind of stuff. But no, what it really comes down to is, are you anti-Trump or not? That's how you get in the door nowadays. You might not know what the hell an artery is. You don't know a vein from an artery. But are you anti-Donald Trump? Come on through. Are you a Native American? Oh, shoot. We got a spot for you. She has rebuffed those calls to hide the race because she needs to know, are you a Native American? Telling colleagues in a 2023 email that despite California's ban on racial preferences, quote, "We are not required to blind any information." That alone could get UCLA in legal trouble. What? From who? Where? What? Why? How? Get the hell out of here. Ain't nobody getting in trouble for this. According to Adam Mortara, the lead trial, Lucero might be the Surgeon General at some point. The lead trial lawyer for the plaintiffs and Students for Fair Admissions v. Harvard, the Supreme Court case that outlawed affirmative action nationwide. Now, it didn't outlaw using race in a holistic manner. That's why that term was used earlier. You look at that court case, it did not outlaw using race as a whole. They still use race. Obviously, it didn't outlaw that. You know what's behind it, and let me stop before I continue, is the 14th Amendment. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment is one of the most disastrous pieces of legislation that we've seen. It's awful. The part of it says, nor shall any state deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. They just interpret that to mean I can do whatever I want. As long as it's anti-white, we're good. If you did the same thing for the whites, it would be really bad. Aaron Sabarium goes on to say, asking for information about an applicant's race when no lawful use can be made of it is presumptively illegal, Mortara said. You can't have some evidence of overt discrimination like this and not have someone come forward as a plaintiff. Who's going to come forward? Your life will probably be over doing that. Lucero has even advocated moving candidates up or down the residency rank based on race. In a meeting in 2022, per 2 people present, she demanded a highly qualified white be knocked down, a white male. That's the worst type. And I'm just doing this for educational purposes, YouTube. It's just a joke. Whatever you need me to say to leave me the hell alone. The highly qualified white, he's not good. He's a white male. He's not. She wanted him knocked down several spots because, as she put it, quote, "We have too many of his kind already." Oh, okay. She also told those who voiced concerns that they had no right to an opinion because they were not BIPOC. They weren't BIPOC, and insisted that a Hispanic applicant, just because they like tacos, they can do better. I don't understand. Who had performed poorly on her anesthesiology rotation. Like nothing's like, not like it's important or anything. They put you down under. That's like one of the most dangerous things, to my knowledge, that you can do. Not that that's important or anything. She performed poorly on her anesthesiology rotation in medical school, should be bumped up. Why? I don't know. She likes a good tortilla. She makes good quesadillas. I don't know. Neither candidate was ultimately moved. Lucero's comments from the meeting were flagged in an email to UCLA's Discrimination Prevention Office, which has received several complaints about her since 2023 email show. The office has declined to act on those complaints on the grounds that they aren't serious enough to merit an investigation, according to a source with direct knowledge of the situation. The focus on diversity has coincided with a dramatic shift in the racial and ethnic composition of the medical school, where the number of Asian matriculants fell by almost a third between 2019 and 2022. No other elite medical school in California saw a similar decline. As the demographics of UCLA have changed, the number of students failing their shelf exams has soared. Trends professors at the medical school say are connected. Between 2020, the year Lucero assumed her post, in 2023, when the first classes she admitted were taking their shelf exams, the failure rate rose dramatically across all subjects, in some cases increasing tenfold relative to the 2020 baseline. And he has all the receipts. Quote, 1/3 to 1/2 of the medical school is incredibly unqualified, one professor said. The collapse in qualifications has been compounded by UCLA's decision in 2020 to condense its preclinical curriculum from 2 years to 1 in order to add time for research and community service. That means students arrive at their clinical rotations with just a year of courses under their belt, some of which focus less on science than social justice. First-year students spend 3 to 4 hours every other week in structural racism and health equity, a required class that covers topics like fat phobia. You know, here at Middle MAGA, we support the fat. Has featured anti-Semitic speakers and is now, okay, we can't get, come on, bro. I can't get away from the JQ. I was not looking to talk about the JQ in this one. What do you want me to, I didn't bring it up. And is now the subject of an internal review. They spend an additional 7 hours a week in foundations of practice, which includes units on interpersonal communication skills, and according to one medical student, basically tells us how to be a good person. The 2 courses eat up time that could be spent on physiology or anatomy, professors say, and leave struggling students with fewer hours to learn the basics. This has been a colossal failure. That's a quote from one professor posted in April on a forum for medical school applicants. Quote, the new curriculum is not working and the students are grossly unprepared for clinical rotations. But they're good social justice warriors, though. Doesn't that mean something? Nearly a quarter of UCLA students, and I fully support YouTube. I fully support this. If this is what our country, if we don't care enough to stop this, I love this. This is great. I'm for the LGBTQ. I'm for the DEI. I'm for the woke. I love them. They're great. I would love for one of these asshats to perform surgery on me and put me under. I would love for one of these asshats to do it. And then they probably search social media to find out my political views, to make a mistake that they probably were going to make anyway because they're complete flunkies. But no, I mean that, YouTube. This is great. I love it. I fully support it. Nearly a quarter of UCLA students failed 3 or more shelf exams in 2021, forcing some students to repeat classes. That's why I'm saying they're flunkouts, they're flunkies, and persuading others to postpone the Step 2 licensing exam that's typically taken in the 3rd year of medical school and is a prerequisite for most residency programs. Around 20% of UCLA students have not taken Step 2 by January of their 4th year, according to the data. 10% have not taken the more basic Step 1, an extremely high number, one professor said, that will force many students to attend medical school. Quote, it's a combination of bad curriculum and bad selection, another professor said, referring to the admissions process. Some students are accepted with GPA so low, they shouldn't even be applying. As medical schools around the country adjust to the Supreme Court's affirmative action ban, the experience of UCLA offers a preview of how administrators may skirt the law and devise public-spirited excuses for violating it. Is there any evidence over the last, let's say, 4 years of the medical community lying or admitting truth in the name of politics that caused people to be unlived? Has that ever happened before? There's no way that would happen. YouTube, I don't even believe this. I'm just reading the news. Aaron Siberium is the one reporting this. I have no idea why anybody would think this would happen. It's impossible. They would never allow this to happen. There would never be doctors that would do immoral acts. I mean, the first thing is do no harm. You would never do that.
Hundreds of Titus deletus, and it has never caused a problem.
Yeah, well, maybe some of them would.
CBS Health Watch, sponsored by Pfizer. And
Yeah. Race is, Lucero has told the admissions committee that each class should represent the diversity of California, including its remote and rural areas, so that graduating students will return to their hometowns and beef up the medical infrastructure there, officials say. Race is rarely mentioned outright, and unlike the Committee for Anesthesiology residents, the Committee for Students does not see the race or ethnicity of applicants. Instead, officials say Lucero uses proxies like zip codes. Oh, you're in the black area. And euphemisms. We already knew this was going to happen when the Supreme Court ruling came down. Euphemisms like disadvantaged to shut down criticism of unqualified candidates, citing a statistic that technically most students with below average MCATs make it to their 2nd year of medical school. How well they do after that point goes undiscussed and undisclosed. We have asked for metrics on how these folks actually do, one committee member said. None of that's ever divulged to us. Don't worry about supporting this, you Blackie mods, because you know what? It's probably more likely that these DEI surgeons, these DEI, deadly, potentially DEI surgeons and pilots and all that, it's more likely that you poors and you blacks are going to get one of those. The rich people, they probably going to want one that is a little bit more white and a little bit more male.
Middle MAGA.